Pete Hewlett, welcome to Living on Music, my man.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's
Thanks
really
for asking an old guy to come on and do an interview.
well, I'm telling you, you're not that old compared to a lot of the guests I've had are older.
Wow.
And yeah, some wild people, the Al Stewarts, the Tom Rushes, those guys are amazing, and also some local people. But anyway, your career has been a wonderful thing, man, to look at. After hearing about the Novo Combo research and things like that. But you have had a wonderful ride, and that's why I have Living on Music, because you have been living on music and you continue to. And we'll talk a little bit about what you've done in your life, how you got there, the influences you had, as well as these amazing artists that you've played with over time and the bands that you've been in. Right now, you continue to play. You live currently outside of Pittsburgh?
Yes, maybe 10 miles outside of the city.
Right. And so that is a place now where you met, but you joined together with Scott Anderson, around 1998, was it?
I believe it was around then. I was living in Nashville at the time, came back to Pittsburgh for a gig, and he was on the gig. We got to talk, and then, it developed into like a 20-plus year, relationship, duos and bands and that sort of thing. So.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's great. And you're continuing to do that. Is it original music? Is it cover stuff? Is just
mostly cover. We'll do some newer things, more so classic rock. It's a duo. It's an acoustic guitar. Scott does keys and keyboard bass.
Right.
We'll throw some original stuff in, some Novo Combo stuff, some songs that Scott and I have worked on, whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, and I love the gig places that you're playing around there, and we talked a little bit about that earlier with pictures around us of those cool places. That's wonderful that is continuing for you in your music world. Let's talk a little bit about kind of where music began for Pete Hewlett, because again, you're continuing to go strong with music, and it must have started early in your life. You were born where? Was it right in Pittsburgh?
In a hospital outside of Pittsburgh. I grew up in a small town called McKees Rocks.
Okay.
And that's actually where I learned. I have an older brother, 4 years older. So introduction to music, other than hearing things on the radio and whatnot, my brother was a big R&B fan. We had there was a DJ in Pittsburgh by the name of Porky Chedwick who would play what they at one time called race music, and introduced Pittsburgh to a lot of just unbelievable people. And, I learned about Muddy Waters, Bo Diddley, all that kind of stuff. Chuck Berry, Little Richard. My brother would play, if he couldn't get the keys to the car, he'd play Shout Part 1 and 2 by the Isley Brothers. And my dad finally would give in and give him the keys to the car. So I grew up with a lot of really great music as a young kid.
And that's a really neat influence of musical genre to hit when you're younger. And did that grab onto you and last throughout your life? I know the music was varied in different things that you did, but
yeah, it did. My first love and desire was to be a baseball player, and
beautiful.
So it was just to this day, baseball is that's my sport. I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Cool, but
Pirates fan.
Yeah.
Well,
it's the best quad A team in baseball. They have all these great pitchers and Cy Young.
Right. Well, I've been a Mets fan for like 59 years, and that's the same thing. I've won 2 World Series. We've only been in the playoffs 11 times. But you guys had amazing Roberto Clemente, Willie Starr, amazing people back in the day. But that's neat that you really wanted to you wanted to be a player.
I did. Like when I was growing up, Maz was my guy, Bill Mazeroski.
Yeah.
Loved Clemente, and I was blessed to see all those guys play at Forbes Field. And I mean, it was just tremendous. Pirates won in 60, they won in 71, 79.
Right.
And that was kind of then they had a couple good teams through the 70s and 90s. But yeah, you hang on. That's my team.
Sure.
But yeah, it was, I played basketball in school. And when the Beatles happened, one of the upperclassmen at the school I went to found out I had a ukulele and was playing, and they were putting a band together. So they asked me one day, and they were both the older guys that were saying, he's a jock, man. He can't be in a band. So they did ask me to join a band with them and develop theirs. When the Beatles happened, it was like everybody in the neighborhood and everybody around had a band.
What was that? What was the name of that band?
Originally it was the Lynx, I think, which was too close to the Kinks. And eventually it became Peter's Pipers, which I hated. But that stuck for a while until, I got cool, groovy, hippie thing came in and joined some other bands. So.
Yeah, I mean, Peter's Pipers, you won. There was a battle of the bands, right? In Westview Park.
Yeah, that was a popular thing back in those days. We won the battle of the bands. We went to Bucks County to the national finals and came in like 6th place or so out of 40 some bands.
Right.
So that was kind of cool.
The Johnny Angel. I love the Johnny Angel review of what you guys were doing when he said we were playing at the Westview Park. He was in the Cordells. You were in Peter's Pipers. He's like, I knew a lot of the groups were performing that year. But then first day I met Pete, I heard him sing, and it was the first note was so impressive. So there's Johnny Angel.
That's funny. You've I don't know if Johnny called you or whatever, but anyway, to this day he can't live that one down. It's so funny. That's his best story. His best story was us beating them in the battle of the bands.
Oh, that's hilarious. And he kept saying people won the T tournament and went on to record their first record, right, with the Philips Mercury records.
We had to deal with Philips Mercury, and much to our dismay, we went to New York, which was fabulous. I mean, gee, New York City.
How old were you, Pete, at that time?
I think 16.
Oh. God.
And I was right around, I was 16 years old. But anyway, we walked into the studio and it was like, we found out we're not playing our own stuff. They had studio musicians doing everything, horns, strings, whatever, the case may be, which was kind of a letdown. But we recorded maybe about 4 or 5 singles with Philips. None of them really did anything, but funny story though, our first record was called Airplane.
Right.
Regionally it did well. And KQV was a big radio station at the time, and they used to have a record spin-off. So they would put 2 records against each other, and people had to vote. So back in those days, not cell phones or anything like that, of course. You had the phone with the cord.
Right.
So we invited everybody in the neighborhood over, classmates, cousins, get in line, and you're calling KQV, and you vote for Airplane. Vote for Airplane. So what's funny is we won, which was no big deal because nothing happened. But the record that we beat out was Sounds of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Oh, that one by those guys. Yeah.
The dumb record they had. But
yeah, they weren't going to go anywhere anyway.
Right.
That's wonderful. You got Sweet Lightning. Okay, So that was the next run, and that seemed to be a pretty big hit too with RCA Records for you at still a young age, right?
Right. We did an album and a few singles. It was a really good band, and our drummer went to play with went off to play with Roy Buchanan, Albert and McLean, played with Donnie Iris, who's a local Pittsburgh guy, but had success with a couple records.
Right.
And Sid McGinnis was our guitar player. And Sid he left Pittsburgh, left the band and moved to New York City. And Sid, just a dynamite player. And he got hooked up with a bunch of different people. Barry Manilow, I think, may have been his first gig.
Wow.
And he became like kind of a session guy. And
right.
That's how I made the contact with New York. With Sid called and he said, I'm doing a thing with Carly Simon and she's looking for a vocalist guitar player. Send her a tape. So I sent a tape up to Sid and, he got it to him and, I got the gig and it was like, whoa.
Wow.
So that was my first big taste of like the big leagues, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. I mean, what year? That was probably around what?
79.
I was going to say, right, around 79. So Carly was on a roll. And so joining in had to be a wonderful experience. Now, you were doing exactly what? Playing
Rhythm guitar
Yeah.
and vocals.
Yeah.
Vocals.
Oh, that's fabulous. I love
I mean,
to.
on a session singing with James Taylor and his brothers, and the band was, Steve Gadd was on sessions, and Ricky Marotta and Don Grolnick, just all the killer players from New York.
Oh,
were doing
wow.
Carly's records at the time, so it was it was a thrill.
And how was she to be associated with?
She was fantastic, Steve. Just
Great.
beautiful.
Wow.
All the way around. She was fantastic. The thing was, we did the album and we did a tour, which didn't last long because she had a problem going on stage, an anxiety thing that she dealt with,
Right.
which I think is somewhat well known. But all she had to do was go out, easy to say, sing the hits. She looked fantastic. People just adored her. And, and she was just fantastic. And
Right.
Ironically, it was in Pittsburgh. We had 2 dates booked at the Stanley Theater, which was a rock venue between an arena, and so a lot of bands came in there. And
Right.
we did the first show, and it was a little bit of a struggle to get through. And the second show, the tour manager came in and said, "Guys, tour's over." And that was it. That was the end of the tour.
Really?
I think it was probably only about 2.5, 3 weeks long that it lasted. Yeah.
Also, Pete, while you're in New York, you answered an audition.
I did.
To a band.
Yeah, I stayed in New York, and it was I really didn't have anything going on, and put a small band together down in the Village with a friend of mine from Pittsburgh, with a couple of friends that he knew. And one of the girls in the band said she went to an audition. She said, "You should go do this audition. It's with Michael Shreve."
Right.
I said, "From Santana, Michael Shreve?" She said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Well, I don't know." She said, "I went up. You should go up and do it." So I went up to SIR Studios, which was a rehearsal studio for where bands went to rehearse for concerts and going on the road, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I walked in, and they asked, "What do you do? Can you sing something?" Blah blah blah, whatever. And we hit it off like immediately. We just kind of liked the same music. Just playing wise, it was cool, and ended up getting the gig. So that was nice.
What was the genre focus of music for Novo Combo when you guys started? What was the thought process to what kind of music you guys wanted to put out there together?
It was, everybody was kind of like into different things. Michael, of course, everybody felt, the other guys in the band, that it should be kind of not Santana, but based like that,
Nice.
like not reggae or ska, which was big at the time, but have that kind of groove to it, where he would be the not the showcase, but I mean, the feel would be put around how he played.
Right.
And Stephen Dees, our bass player, Stephen and Michael were great together, and it was amazing because we would get together and just rehearse every day, rehearse all day long. Somebody had a song. I got a song. How about this part in that song? And that's all we did all day long, and wrote, rehearsed, and everything. And the sound kind of developed itself. Jack Griffith is a master at sounds and chords and different chord variations and everything.
Right.
Built around that, and it allowed me to do melodies as far as singing, and it was just it was just a great chemistry, really was.
Oh, I love that. You had Novo Combo by the self-titled first record, and you had a couple hits up Periscope and City Bound, right? Weren't those two?
My Tattoo was one of the big songs on it, but we actually did probably up Periscope was the one that we did. Solid Gold, those kind of things. And now,
with our pick hit of the week, Novo Combo singing Up Periscope.
Beneath an ocean world, open sea, aquamarine. We while away our time. It's peace we hope to find. We're top security in our submarine. The captain, he's okay, but is it worth the pay? His rules I cannot stand. He's worse than my old man. My rule is just a sail. A long time we fulfilled. I long for liberty. 3 days in Italy. Up, down, Paris, go, round, round we go, search high and low, round, round and up, down, Paris, go, round, round we go, search high and low, round, round and up, down, Paris, go, round, round we go, search high and low, round, round and up, down, Paris, go, round, round we go, search high and low, round, round and I got the...
And the next year, 82, the animation generation.
Yeah, that was a big transition for us because Jack had left the band.
Okay.
We auditioned guitar players, and at the time, our management for some reason was not in favor of having Chris Kimsey, who produced our first album. Chris produced the Rolling Stones and a number of other bands over the years.
Right.
Just a fabulous person, great producer. And Chris kind of got the whole Novo Combo thing, the original band. He was like in the rawness of it.
Right.
And it meshed real well.
Oh.
And for whatever reason, so we were looking for a producer for the second album. And we ended up with another great producer, Elliot Shiner, who is he's iconic as well.
Wow.
Yeah. And the guitar player that we chose was Carlos Rios, who's an outstanding guitar player. Carlos, he's been touring with Stevie Nicks for years, and he's played with Gino Vanelli. One of his big things was he was the first guitar player Gino Vanelli ever used on a record. And, but Carlos is fantastic as well. But it kind of changed our thing from the first album. If people were expecting a similar, sound or approach, whatever, it became a little slicker in a way compared to the first album.
Right.
Still a lot of really good songs on it.
Yeah, and your vocals were given. Like Glory Days Music comment that was the songs which stand out are the ones in which Pete Hewlett sings. So
I forget how much money I gave to them.
That's what I saw. About you gave about $1,000, but no.
Yeah. Something like that.
But that's nice that that your vocals were strong with that. I love too, during that run with Novo, then that you guys toured with the Who.
We did. That was their first Swan Song tour. Wow. And
yeah,
it was funny because Michael, of course, was associated or knew a lot of people. We would have Mick Jagger would show up at our gigs, or Pete Townsend showed up at one of our recording sessions, and it was really a cool thing.
That's great.
And it was through that relationship, whatever, that Pete asked if we'd be into doing some shows, with the Who, and it was like fantastic.
Wow.
It's a no-brainer.
Oh, that's great.
But,
were they in the United States or across the border?
Yeah, they were in the United States. We actually did two, maybe three. I think that was it. And then the other tours we went for. Like Cheap Trick, Greg Lake with Gary Moore, that was a great band.
Greg Lake, I interviewed about 6 or 8 months before he passed, and what a great guy. When I remember going to see him live at the Birchmere here in Virginia, which is a legendary club that's been there for 60 years. He played there, and he played by himself and had full background music playing while he was doing, whatever, his bass and drums and stuff. And it was kind of an interesting thing with no band and just him, but he sounded great. Back then, he still was very talented. Great singer, too.
Oh, yeah. I always loved his voice.
Yeah, and you performed at the Montreux Jazz Festival.
We did. That was with the second Novo Combo. That was interesting, too, because Montreux Jazz Festival, why us? But yeah, that was actually our only step out of the country because we never played in England.
Right.
We did an interview last night with a fellow from Melbourne, Australia. We
Right.
never made it to Australia or Japan. Talked about that as well. As as well that a lot of bands who are semi popular or successful in the States can go to Japan and be huge.
Absolutely.
But we never made it to Japan either. So
Oh, that's why.
and of course hindsight is like. But anyhow, I was like, should we had plowed on? But it came down to after the second album and the tour and everything that we found out that the record company was waning on, we may have to look for another deal somewhere there's not a lot of money to sustain everybody while we were on the road, that kind of thing. And I think at that point, everybody kind of threw their arms up and said, you know what, maybe I'd have tried to be a baseball player.
Yeah.
Which was too late by that time,
or find some other amazing directions in music like you did, at least for sure, coming up with right after that. But that's still sounded like a nice run. I mean, it was a differentiation into the second record, but only 2 years. Yeah, you thought maybe it would go longer.
I think, I was going to say, looking at it, I wish we had pressed on, and made whatever changes we needed to do, and just because I mean, stories like Tom Petty or you name it. Guys that had, struggled with a sophomore jinx,
Right.
in drinks, but, plowed through it and eventually found success. Some
Right.
don't, but a lot do, and I think the talent was definitely there for us to, to get something going.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It looks like you did. A huge part of, to me, and I'm sure to you, and to many about your career was joining Billy Joel. And, Innocent Man and the Bridge World Tours. How did you hook up with him, and how did that go? And is it as amazing as it sounds? Is really what I'm going to probably wonder. Is it had to be a pretty amazing run. And we'll talk about the Soviet Union one too.
oh yeah, it was
How did you get
after Novo Combo had split up. I came back home
right?
and was trying to figure things out. I spent a little bit of time in New York, but it wasn't the same.
Okay.
And friendships that I had, Teddy Leonard, who was with Novo Combo, was our production manager and sound production, everything.
Right.
He was working. He got a job with Billy. Mark Rivera, Billy's sax player, would come around. I was doing some solo gigs while I was with Novo Combo at the time.
Right.
In Manhattan. Mark would pop in, play some sax parts, and that kind of thing. So I got to know Mark. And Billy I'd met at a place called My Father's Place out in Long Island.
Right.
With Novo Combo. We had played out there a number of times.
Yeah, I know.
But
that
anyway,
place, yes.
I got a call one day, and I can't recall whether it was from somebody in Billy's office or it might have been Mark, asking if I'd be interested in singing with Billy, that his new album has a lot of vocals on it. And my thought was like, wow. I mean, I wasn't a huge Billy Joel fan. I loved, respected his music and everything.
Sure.
But I thought, and I listened to the Innocent Man album, and I thought, I want to have to be a front man or semi-front man, co-front man with a guitar to do it. I could just sing these great parts. So I said, yeah, I'll do it.
Oh,
It was like a no-brainer, So I went up and sang some things, and he said, "Yeah, you got the gig if you want it." So it was like, and it was just, it's fabulous.
oh, it was. What was it? What was it like collaborating with Billy?
One thing that I always cherish is like Billy's a great singer. He says he isn't, but I always love. We got to do certain things together. Until the Night, a song like that, or whatever. There were two singers in the band at all times, but just singing parts and singing with a great singer is just like, I loved it. Absolutely.
Oh, I bet the album Stranger was something that Jack was in high school with.
Yeah.
I remember
that was
sitting
my favorite Billy album. That's the one that I knew.
Me too. And I remember, dating a girl, and her best friend dated my best friend, and we were two little couples, and we'd sit in the basement and neck. and listen to Just the Way You Are. And now
There you go.
every time I hear it, I think of Jenny DeWare. But Billy Joel's always been incredible. You also got the tour, International News, which was this fully staged rock production to the Soviet Union. It was part of the Reagan Gorbachev summit, right? Talk a little
Right.
bit about how that was presented to Billy and to you to be involved, and how it was going into you to go play there and do this.
There was, for me, we did the Innocent Man tour, and in the interim, I got to work with Phil Ramone, Billy's producer, quite a bit.
Oh, wow.
And Phil introduced me to so many people and would use me on sessions. And one of the big ones that I really didn't expect, or would never in my life expect to be involved in, was a Broadway show, Andrew Lloyd Webber,
Right.
called Starlight Express.
Yes.
And Mark Cohen, who Mark wrote Walking in Memphis, and Richie Havens and Patty Austin and
Right.
Josie Aiello, fabulous singers, were different characters in this play.
Totally. I saw it in those years in New York City.
You know what? I've never seen it.
Oh,
I'm sad to say, but anyhow, I got to be a part of the original soundtrack.
oh,
And at the time,
spectacular.
Trevor Horn was he put the shows together for Andrew Lloyd Webber, and he was really in favor of having the original guys, people who sang on the album, be in the cast. The trick was it was all done on roller skates. So
Oh my God.
I actually was taking roller skating lessons at the time. And in the meantime, they had a problem, I believe. The situation was they couldn't find sponsorship to transform a a New York theater into what they needed with there were ramps and different rooms and all kind of different things that
Right.
some theaters didn't want to. No, we're not doing that. So right in that niche is when Billy, I got called by Billy again. It was like, we were going to do a tour in Russia, going to Russia. And I was like, oh, which was the USSR. And I'm thinking, I'll never in my lifetime ever be able to go there. And some people said at the time I was able to break into doing TV radio jingles, which was very lucrative and huge in Manhattan, of course.
Sure.
So, people were saying, don't do it, man. You should stay, just stay. And I chose to go.
Oh,
So I bailed on if the Andrew Lloyd Webber show was going to happen and everything. I thought, I'm going to do this. So that's what I did. And I'm glad I did. And I could say, oh, did I miss out on whatever, but you can't look at it that way.
right.
And just the trip itself was, I don't know the behind the scenes, but there was a lot of things. It was a cultural exchange where I think the Bolshoi ballet and or orchestra came over in exchange for Billy going over with a full production rock show over there.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
that is unbelievable. I mean, it was Moscow and Leningrad.
Right. And one of the great ones was the first thing that we did, we went to Tbilisi in Georgia. This is before we did the big shows. And we went there and we spent a day in the Ural Mountains singing with, I think there were 7 or 8 Soviet journalists who were well-versed in Russian folk music, which dated back to the early centuries.
Wow.
And we went up to a monastery in the Ural Mountains and sang in the up in the monastery. And it's there's a recording of it. I have one somewhere, but it was pretty amazing.
Oh, I'd love to hear that. Maybe we can pop that in.
Guys, those guys were just fantastic, and it was kind of funny because they were doing their very earthy folk music from the 3rd and 4th century, that kind of thing. We'd come back with, as we stroll along together. Woo. We're doing doo-wop stuff. They're singing this ancient stuff. We're thinking we're like in the bathrooms when you're in high school because the echo's cool, that kind of thing. So,
Oh my
but
God.
it was just great. And then at night we went down to the people were just they were unbelievably fantastic, hospitable, just wonderful people. Unannounced, we did a theater in Tbilisi, small theater, packed, and it wasn't the full band, and we didn't have all the production and everything. It was just kind of like if a band went in with their stuff and played a gig.
Oh,
and we actually a couple of the Russian musicians from Tbilisi played along, and we did a handful of Billy songs, and Billy did Blowing in the Wind. One of the songs he was asked not to do. There were certain songs that the Soviet government did not want him to do. One was Honesty. They did not want Honesty.
oh yeah, I wonder why.
I'm trying to remember all this stuff. But
that was like Honesty. Yeah. Oh my God, really? Yeah. Don't do that. No honesty.
Yeah. But the one it's funny, the one they did request was Saigon.
Oh.
So, but that is kind of odd, but considering the times and everything, I guess. But that experience in Tbilisi in Georgia was really, really fantastic.
Still in peaceful dreams, I see the road leads back to you. Oh, I said, Georgia, oh, Georgia, no peace I find.
Just the memories of it was just wonderful.
Oh, it sounds spectacular. I can't believe you were there. I've heard of that trip back then, and I've always wondered what it was like, and that's wonderful to get a little bit of a sense from somebody who was right there. Was it when you got back, or was it during the time when you were touring with Billy or something, where you did some more amazing stuff, man? The Joe Jackson's Big World recording and tour. Did you tour with Joe?
That was a really cool gig too. Joe did a live to 2-track album called Big World.
Right.
And the band was small. We had myself and 3 other singers, and the band was just drums, bass, a guitar player, and Joe. And Joe would play maybe some accordion. He'd play piano, or he would just sing with a 3-piece band. And it was great. We would go unannounced to Hoboken, to Wilkes-Barre, to just a bar. And word got out and it'd be packed.
Oh.
A couple of other places may have been, but I can't recall like tickets being sold, for people to come and see us play or whatever.
Right.
And the actual album was done at a Shakespearean theater down on East 14th, I think, in the Village.
Wow.
I'm trying to remember all this stuff, but with might have been the Rolling Stones mobile unit.
Wow.
Live to 2-track. People were given a small piece of paper that said, you are attending a Joe Jackson concert, but you're also recording or attending a live recording. It's like being at a recording session. All we ask is that you hold your applause till Joe gives a signal, like not like screaming during a song or whatever, because it's a recording session, which was so cool. And, we could do, I remember doing one song, and the producer came over the monitors. He said, Joe, can we do that one more time? And Joe said, "Do you folks mind? We're going to redo that song one more time. Do you mind?" And it was like they went crazy. But what a great experience for an audience as well, you know. And it was a cool thing to be involved in. It was really unique.
I love that. Yeah, he was something else special too, from a talent and the differentiation of some of the things that he did across the spectrum too. That one record that was like something out of a Broadway show that I listened to all the time. It's amazing. You also did The Secret Value of Daydreaming with none other than Julian Lennon.
Julian Lennon, yeah, that was fun too. It was a couple things that I experienced, memories that I had that were cool was meeting Cynthia Lennon, his mom, Sin.
Sure.
She walked in the room and was like, "Oh my God, it's Sid. Hello, Sid." You know, it's like, beautiful lady. And another thing was, I remember Julian said he was going to bring one of his dad's guitars in. And of course, we were like, "Oh, killer. This will be great." So he brought the guitar in and put it up on the bench and opened the case, and it wasn't the Rickenbacker from Ed Sullivan's Show or one that you saw him play, but it was still John Lennon's guitar, you know.
Oh, how great.
That was a great experience too. Julian's very, very talented guy. Very talented.
He sure is. That's something that he continues to do. I've been trying to get him on Living on Music for a little while, and maybe it'll happen someday, but I would love to talk to him about himself and also a little bit about that guy, that father of him.
Sure.
Of his. You had Amy Grant, who has always just been another sensation. The level of talent, Pete, that these people that you were working with is really wonderful. Amy Grant, there was the World Leader Summit performance. Talk a little bit about how that meshed.
That was, I had moved, we moved to Nashville in hopes of, I didn't want to be in a New York kind of hustle bustle, you know, kind of that I was used to when I was up there in the 80s.
Right.
So we'd moved to Nashville, and I knew some people there that I had met, you know, over the years, and stayed in touch with them when we went down. And I was in hopes of breaking in down there, you know,
Sure.
whether it be session vocals, whatever the case may be. So a good friend of mine was part of the management company that managed Amy, and she was another one, just fantastic person and super talented.
Wow.
And we, it was the World Summit. It was President Clinton and Boris Yeltsin, I think Tony Blair, all the big leaders at that time.
Wow.
And it was in Denver at a rodeo kind of facility, which was kind of weird. But it was great because the show was the history of American music. So there was a tribe from Arizona, the Hopi Indians.
Yeah.
Did a thing.
Wow.
Sounds of Blackness from New Orleans, a Preservation Jazz Orchestra from New Orleans, Eartha Kitt, Ronnie Spector, Chuck Berry, and it was just like through the years kind of thing. Ooh. And Amy was one of the ones that was picked, and we did one song, but it was just great experience. Once again, I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have experienced so many great things. I'll tell you.
Yeah, and again, it didn't end there. You a few years later in 2008, when we were talking a little bit earlier about that, behind me, one of my favorite places on the earth. In fact, I was at that game in 1969 when Tom Seaver had a perfect game going into the ninth inning.
Nice.
And that was a base hit, and he was so upset, and the rest of everybody else is flipping. But that's such a special place. You got once again to perform with not only around Billy and doing it with him, but Tony Bennett, John Mayer, Daltrey, Garth Brooks, Don Henley, John Mellencamp, Steven Tyler, and then this other Beatle guy, Paul McCartney. What was that like?
The whole thing was very much a surprise for me because it was like 19 years that since I'd worked with Billy.
Right.
And I always say I was going to say, hey, if you hadn't called me after 20 years, I was going to tell you to lose my number. But anyhow, I thought, and I got called for that. I was like, would you be into doing it? It's like, hello.
No problem.
So it was that was fantastic because like all the people that you named as well. And of course I had to go out, baseball fan, I'm in Shea Stadium and it's like walk out to second base where the Beatles were set up, where the stage was, and just look at it and see, just absorb the whole thing.
Right.
Drink it in. And so we did kind of a dress rehearsal kind of show in Hershey, PA, and where everything was set up just to iron out the kinks and let's not do that song and let's add this one, that kind of thing. And then we did two shows at Shea, and it was like it was a rumor that Paul McCartney was going to show up, and of course that was huge.
Yeah.
And it was just, just standing behind all those people singing, it was wonderful. And then it was crazy because I came off the stage. It was like before Billy was doing an encore, I think, or maybe right before that. And one of the crew guys said, McCartney just showed up. I said, are you kidding me? And he said, no, man, he just showed up now. And when you look at the video of how they got him there and everything, it's like, holy shit, it's like,
oh
wow.
my God.
It was incredible. And he walked through the doorway and, he came over, gave a couple people a hug, but I always think he gave me the hug anyway. But anyhow, he said, how you doing, man? He said, doing good, Paul. How are you doing? He said, ready to rock and roll. Turned around, got his bass. The band's vamping on. I saw her standing there, went up on stage. It's like, this is cool. It's like singing with Paul McCartney. And so it was a great experience. Really, really great one.
So there's Paul McCartney playing with my band at our show. I'm looking at the band, and everybody's got this big shit-eating grin. Like, this is so cool. You believe this?
Yeah, it sounds like it on numerous levels, especially almost for me that you were at Shea, because for music there, that had to be incredible too. I took my son to the last game ever there in 2007, and that was the end of that. Now we go to Citi Field. He lives in New York City, and he's 28 and loves the Mets and things like that. I just had G.E. Smith on the show, and we talked a lot about things. The first thing he talked about, though, and this is what's wild, is the presence of Paul McCartney. He was playing a gig at a small club in Long Island where he lives.
I think I saw a video of that.
And Amagansett, right? And he said, we were supposed to interview on Tuesday, and he said, Steve, can I move it to Wednesday? I'm doing a show that night at a little club with Chad Smith on drums, from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
And that Paul, of course, a Long Island resident, so to speak, came in, and they saw her standing there, as you saw. And that is just so fun that he continues to pop into people's lives and was part of yours that, in that life. Over the last 15 or so years, or what would have been the most recent musical things that have really gotten to you, or what has life been like for Pete Hewlett for the last few years?
I've slowed down quite a bit.
Sure.
I was in an auto accident in 1970, and it's kind of like I'm able to walk, but it's like I have a balanced situation.
Okay.
But thank God it hasn't affected playing or singing, so I can still get out and do that, which I'm thankful for. So
sure.
But slowed down. It's like I don't play as much as I did maybe since COVID. COVID kind of, like for everybody, changed everything.
Totally.
Get a little more selective on where you want to play, when you want to play. I don't want to play Sundays. I don't, that kind of thing. So just like Scott and I'll get together. I'm working with different friends. They'll call and say, hey, you want to do a gig here? And it's like, yeah, go out and make a couple bucks and, play some songs. And as long as I can sing and play, I'm happy. There could be 10 people. There could be Shea Stadium, whatever. I just always felt that I kind of sing the way I do and, put out whatever I have. If there's one person there, like I said, it could be whatever. So I enjoy it.
Oh, completely. And Pete, your talent continues, I'm sure, because it's been a great ride. And I've loved looking at Novo, loved looking at some of the other things that you've been doing over your career. And it's just, I love it. The Novo Combo thing, there was a release of a new album. When was that? Was that 45 West 55th?
45 West 55th. It was actually Michael's apartment in Manhattan. After I went and did the audition thing, we stayed there. We wrote there. We rehearsed there. The whole thing, and it's that's why it was chosen. But it's interesting because we would talk over the years, whatever, and like so many bands and artists, I'm sure you look on. There's people streaming your music. They're selling your albums on eBay, and it's like somebody's making money off of this stuff, you know.
Right.
So I was approached by somebody that said they were asking if I had and it was like a looked to be a reputable company, and they were asking me if I had the master tapes for Animation Generation, our second album.
Wow.
And I'm like, for what reason? You know, it's like kind of. And so I contacted Steven because Steven has a record company, production company. I said, "Have you ever heard of this guy?" He said, "I think I have. Let me check into it." So he did, and the guy pretty much just takes stuff and reissues it, and you know, makes money off of it, whatever.
Wow.
So we kind of came to the conclusion: why don't we take hold of our stuff? If we have to change a word in the title or whatever,
Sure.
put it back out there. So what we decided to do was take some of the tracks that we had before we got our record deal. Some of the songs are on the first album. Some are not, but they're on the 45 West 55th. There might be. I'm not looking at the album, whatever. Anyhow, and incorporate. We had a bunch of live stuff, which sounded great. Steven went through the tapes and he said, "There's a lot of really good stuff here." I went through some stuff. I found Michael, of course, and Jack as well. And we kind of put it together. So what we did was wrote a couple songs, changed some parts in certain songs.
Great.
But kept it not the original, like off of the album.
Right.
And it turned out to be a nice package of music. And it's great to like do interviews like with yourself, talk to you about the things. We've done a bunch of other Zooms, and we're getting people are like, whether they're old fans or people are hearing it for the first time, it's like just to have a little bit of interest is really nice.
Yeah, I bet it's great, and it's great for you guys to be able to do something like that too after many years.
Yeah.
To get back together. I love people do that in music a lot, and it makes you feel good in numerous different ways. But well, look, you are continuing to roll with Scott. I'm wishing you the very best with
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
The music part of your world, etc., up in beautiful outside of beautiful Pittsburgh. And again, let's I'll keep in touch, and I'd love to check out what that revamped record sounds like. So
that would be fantastic.
That would be great, and I'll share it around. But again, be well, and thanks again for being on Living on Music, man.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. We'll be in touch.
Take care, mate, for sure.